basic composition and background. Here we go. So I never filmed this one when I did this because I just needed a break, needed to just jam a little bit, you know. Sometimes I get like that. So rarely, actually, I normally film everything I do, but let's get into it. Let's have a look at what I did on this just to compose it. Now, this is a very, very simple piece. To start off with, I've got to tell you that it's a very simple piece. I was going to do a lot more complex piece, but I ended up doing a very simple piece, and I'll show you why it's so simple. So you've got two figures in the foreground. You've seen these figures before, I do them a lot, these types of figures. I gave him a slightly different pose. He's twisting his head, looking this way, facing that way. He's facing that way completely. That's important because the lighting, but I'm not really going to dwell too much on the lighting right now because we're going to talk about background and composition. So first of all, composition wise, I put this fella down here. He's a small fella. Now, when I first done it, I did his little body here, but I made it too big. So I had to rub it out and do it much, much smaller. So I made him really small. Now, compositionally, if it had been too big, it's not very pleasing to the eye because then he starts to sort of just vanish off the frame down there. And these things are important. I can't really explain why, but they are important. He needs a nice position. That's a nice position for him just there. I set the next character back a little bit and faced him in profile. So the energy sort of is facing, whatever it is, attention is being diverted this way. You know, for what it's worth. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to put them not right at the front. So I did this pipe down here. Now, the thing about anything I mean, for this I've used pipes because I put them in a sort of like, you know, weird kind of magical realism sewer or something. God knows where they are. It's very green in there, wherever it is. But I'm using pipes for this one. Very easy to do, really easy to do. So I'll drop this line in front of them. So that is closer to us than they are. And a general rule, and it's only a general rule, is that anything close to us can be much, much darker. And as we push backwards, and you'll see this in a second when I explain it, when you push backwards, all your objects get lighter. So these pipes in black here, and black there, and black there, they frame it very nicely. You may have noticed compositionally, I've offset it. It's at an angle. It's at a slight angle rather than just being straight on. That's it's an old comic book trick. God knows who invented it. It'll be someone like Jack Kirby or someone like that. I know quite a lot about the history of comics, but I don't know history of American comics well enough to tell you who done it first. But it's a comic trick. It's a comic panel trick of making your drawings look a bit more interesting, a bit more engaging to the viewer, because you are the director. When it comes to your, obviously it's a still image, but you've got to direct it. You're the camera. You know, you've got to decide how you're going to position the camera, you know, as in, you know, am I going to put it at an angle? What bit am I going to do? You know, I could have put them guys up there, you know, and view them from bottom up. I never do that. I hate those. Anyway, what I did, I set off at an angle a little bit because I thought it was more interesting. And I do that quite a lot. If you look at my work, I often do that. Set things at an angle. Sometimes I do it at a really heavy angle, really like 45-degree angle, which sometimes is a bit too much, but still changes it up, doesn't it? So anyway, got these black pipes. So they're the nearest to us. Nearest to us. And they can all be black silhouettes. I've put a little bit of highlighted, you know, it's not particularly great, that highlight on there. I was going to do it in pencil, but then I decided not to, and it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Who cares, right? But it just gives us a bit of foreground detail. Like I say, black, really dark. I could do it dark. I could have done it really, really dark green, but I wanted to do it black to really, you know, hit us with it. So next, after I've done all the background in this sort of very, very light green, I've done all that, I started to put the other pipe work in. Now these pipes, see these ones? This one there, that one going up there, that one coming across there. They are the next layer down. So they're like, who knows the distance, 10, 20 feet towards the back, something like that. These light ones pushes it even further back, gives it even more depth, because as we're going backwards, there's less light to reflect on these things, so they're getting lighter. In real life, often when you do that, it's a real life thing. Basically, if you start to look at it in still life, particularly cities and stuff like that, stuff fades as it goes further and further away from you. I could go into more detail about that, but there's no point really. You'll begin to observe this. Now I've said it, you can begin to look at it as well and observe it. So your characters, you've got to choose a subject which is going to be in high detail, and that is here. It's this, him, and him. So whatever I do on them is going to be detailed. Now, obviously, I've chosen to do a very, very strong sort of secondary light source coming from this here, which is shining a big light onto him there, shining the light onto him there. And for that, what you do when you're shining light onto any surface is you, how can I explain this? So all surfaces, I'll have to do some kind of illustrative tutorial at some point on this, but it's sort of basic drawing technique, which is all objects in nature are made up of spheres, cylinders, blocks, and pyramids. Every single object in nature is made up of them things, and sometimes a combination of them things. So, for instance, that's a cylinder. That's a cylinder. It's a round thing, with a round top on like that. That's a big oblong block, etc, etc, etc. I could go on, don't need to, you know what I'm talking about. So the way that light hits it in a very particular way. When you get used to drawing these things, you get used to how light will hit them, what planes they will hit. So something like that is a plane, that is a plane, and that is a plane. You can see the way that light hits that. My light is up there, so it will be brightest just there, not as bright just there, and darkest there, because that is that's the plane that is furthest away from the light source. It's very simple when you get into it. It's very, very simple. This is just that. That's like that object you've just seen. It's got a front plane there, side plane there, would have a top or a bottom on it. So being able to light them up is easy, and you can the beauty about something like that is as well, you can use artistic license. You don't have to get it absolutely right. That hand is not absolutely right, to be perfectly honest with you, but I don't care, because it doesn't need to be, because you'll buy it. If his hand was facing away from the light like that, it'd be a lot darker. Be a lot darker, but I didn't want to do it darker. I wanted to do it lighter, so I did. There you go. And you buy it, don't you? You wouldn't even mentioned it if I hadn't mentioned it. So that's a little bit about lighting. But composition is the most important thing that I'm trying to talk about in this one. Now, I did have the idea that I wanted to do this a t-shirt design, so I've left a bit of space up there for a title or a piece or something like that, if I wanted to. Often, if you design comics or anything, you already know this, you leave lots of space. Like that, if there's a comics panel, you leave lots of space, and these would be the speech bubbles up here. You leave the space for the speech bubbles. So these are here, he says something there, and he says something there, and you've got a panel, and then you've got a bit of maybe action down here of what's going on. So you leave lots of space. This is sort of, I mean, this is filled space, but technically this is sort of, anything empty is negative space, and this is when your negative space comes into its own, because You've got your characters there. If you look at how much space the characters take up on this cylinder, because they're the main bits, the cylinder, these characters, they take up probably about half the page, which means you've got a good half the page. I'm talking about in total, like total surface area. You've got lots of surface area around them, which is not filled with them. It's not filled with the main object of what we're looking at. The rest is going to be background. Now this is very, and I'm somebody who I like to fill up the space quite a lot. I don't always do it. Some writers just fill the space completely. I'm trying to think of somebody now. Like Cacao77, for instance. I don't know, I flipped through his book. Look through my my videos, have a look at him. He fills the space. He's very, very good at it. Fills every detail you can imagine, you know, letters, characters, bits and pieces, all sorts of stuff, starburst, you name it, he's done it. It's a complete sort of, you know, so busy. Everything is so busy. He's very good at that. Serve is another one. Serve, you know, world famous black booker, brilliant artist. He's very good at filling stuff as well. He's not a big negative space guy. Someone at Remy Ruff is the opposite. Uses loads of negative space, loads and loads of it. I use loads of it as well. I really love the idea compositionally of doing. I mean, this is quite a lot of. This is a lot of negative space for me. You see, I'm saying that. I'm thinking, actually, there's other bits I could show you where I've got a lot more negative space than that. Yeah, maybe I'll do that actually. Maybe I will show you one. Here it is. So this is in the Blueprint for Destruction, Volume 1. If you ain't got one, get one. These books are brilliant. Look at these. I mean, obviously I've filled this one pretty much, but it's all train templates and great, amazing stuff. You've got to get one of these. So look at this one that I've done. So it's a nighttime scene, obviously. All the light sources coming from here, which is why the reflected light is on these guys on there. Look at the negative space I've used there. It's a huge amount of negative space, and that's just, I haven't even bothered doing anything there. Just I leave it white. That's a big chunk of that picture. That's like it's like a third of that is just white. There's nothing there. Again, you can see what I've done here. So I've done very, very detailed little tenement blocks there. Lots of detail on them. Slowly getting smaller, obviously, because they're going into the distance there. Then in the background, I push those buildings right back there, right there, a long way away. That one's a little bit closer, which is why it's a little bit darker. And then just a big white space. That's negative space. That's use of negative space. I really like that. I love that kind of thing. It's very impressionistic, that as well. You know, it gives you a strong impression of something without it being highly illustrated. And you've got you've got the main focus of your piece there, which is this wall, the light coming off there from this lamp, and these guys. They're your main focus. Everything else is just backing it up. And this helps it out by just being nice and empty. Is this making sense to you? Have a look at that one as well, just while I've got the time. This is sort of the opposite. This is a very filled piece. Because obviously I've got the main characters there. They're in there. Then you've got bits of detail in the back there and all that. And then you've got this great truck there, you know. And lots of buildings. It's all in detail. So there's not really very much, you know, a bit of negative space at the top there. But nothing that really sells the piece. This piece is sold on the fact that it's full. It's a full illustration. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of stuff, you know, from left to right, right to left. You can see there's a lot of stuff happening there. This one, you can see it's not the same. The negative space sells it. And I'm going on and on about this, but it's, you know, that's how you learn stuff, isn't it? It's how I learned, and it took me a long time as well. A long time. Anyway, there you go. I'm going to wrap it up there. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It's a bit of a basic composition of backgrounds thing. I mean, I will I'll get pencil on paper. I just want to show you theoretically that background before I actually sort of, you know, give you a bit of a sketch session on it. But I will do one of them and all. Okay, cheers.